So what are we looking at today? Well, the Boss SY-1 guitar synthesizer pedal. Let's check it out, shall we? Tribe of Names, welcome back and a happy new year to you. My name is Simon Godfrey and I'm a professional musician who has spent the past 35 years working in and sometimes around the recording music industry. On this channel we provide tips and tricks for the aspiring songwriter and musician in you. So when it comes to guitar synthesizers, you're probably in one of two camps. You're either very much for them, or you've got no interest, or you in fact hate them because they're very difficult. They do require a certain level of skill and adjustment to your playing style in order to make them successfully work on stage. Now, I personally have used many guitar synthesizers, especially over the past 20 years, from the mighty VG99 made by Roland right the way through to this GR20, which was on my pedal board for probably close to a decade and is pretty beaten up now, but I absolutely love them simply for the sonic palette that it brings to your guitar sound. Thankfully today the guitar synthesizers that you can buy are both A, cheaper, and B, a lot more forgiving of your playing style, so you don't really have to adjust your guitar style as much as you had to back in the days when there was these pickups you had to put on the guitar. You can still do that and achieve amazing results, but as I said before, you do have to adjust your guitar style a little bit. Thankfully, the Boss SY-1 is an incredible machine because it allows you access to those kind of guitar synth sounds that musicians like Robert Fripp and Alan Holdsworth and Pat Metheny were using back in the day, but in a tiny little box and in a much more forgiving player format, which basically means you can just plug your guitar in one way and out through the amp and it will sound like a guitar and a synthesizer at the same time. So with regards to functionality, you do get an awful lot of bang for your buck considering the form factor here. You've got an in and an out plus an expression pedal and a send and return so you can blend in other effects to taste. You have 11 banks of sounds, each with 11 variations within the banks. You've got a tone control knob, so you've got some sound sculpting abilities here. Plus the fact you do have the ability to mix your synth and your guitar levels to taste. So all in all, it's a very powerful pedal when you consider the size that we're working with. There's also a hold function which lets you sustain any sound by pressing down on the pedal and keeping it depressed, which I think is a really cool idea, especially when it comes to soloing over one chord or one patch. As for the sounds themselves, you're definitely in early 80s synth territory, everything from twinkly bells to warm analog washes. And what I'll do for you now is I'll play you a little example of some of the patches that are really towards the more analogy, dare I say Blade Runner-esque end of the spectrum in this next example. I hope you enjoy it. So I used 4 tracks of the Boss SY-1 on that last example, the first being an analog warm pad followed by a soaring lead tone held together with a Taurus pedal bass. And incidentally, if you are a bass player, there's a little switch at the back that will actually allow this pedal to track your bass guitar a lot better than it is set on the guitar patch. So they've got you covered there. And finally, what soundtrack for the science fiction future wouldn't be complete without some lo-fi booms in the background? And to round it off, I used a little bit of shimmer from the Hall of Fame Reverb 2. So what do I think about this pedal? Well, having had it for about 6 months now, I've drawn up a list of pros and cons, and as is always the case, this is a very personal opinion of what I think about it. So obviously if you have a very different experience, or you have different opinions about what this thing can and can't do, by all means list them in the comments below. But this is what I think. Well, first off in the plus column is the size. When you consider the form factor and exactly how many sounds they've packed into this little machine, it's incredibly impressive, especially when you compare it to my old GR20. It's freed up a huge amount of floor space which I can use for other pedals. The second tick in the plus column for this instrument, and I do consider it an instrument, is that it's a very, very forgiving machine to play. With regards to tracking, it's incredibly quick in comparison to its predecessors, and also allows a certain amount of sloppiness or aggressiveness in my playing. And being a lead singer and rhythm guitarist who's not always concentrating 100% on playing the guitar in the correct manner because I'm trying to put on a show and sing well, that's a big thing for me. The third point is if you plug in an expression pedal, you can use it to open and close the filters on each of the patches that are contained within the pedal, which gives you a lot more sonic flexibility. And one other thing which I didn't realise until I read the user manual, if you have a Boss FS5 switch, or in my case a Boss FS6 switch, you can also use it for tap tempo and pitch functions. On the downside, well, because of its small form factor, you can't save any patches, or at least I can't see any way to save any patches on this, and neither can you adjust or change the patches on the fly during a performance unless you lean down and do so with your hand. In addition to that, even with the expression pedal attached, the pedal has very limited tone shaping abilities. I mean, not uninteresting in any way, shape or form, but don't expect any deep dives into the waveform just using an expression pedal. And finally, the sounds on this little machine are very much focused on those early 80s synth sounds, which could indeed be a plus point if that's what you're after. So what do I think of the Boss SY-1? Well, if you're making your first tentative steps in the world of guitar synthesis, you could do a lot worse than check this pedal out. It's got a lot of very compelling patches, especially if you're an aspiring songwriter. And while the palette of sounds could conceivably be conceived as limited, I actually think they're incredibly focused and quite evocative, especially the bass and the sequencer sounds. And it has that ability of extending your sonic palette beyond the regular ones that you have under your feet and under your fingers as a guitarist. Well then, to round out this video, I'm going to be showing you what I consider to be this pedal's party trick, and that's the ability to extend your guitar tone beyond what you thought was possible. In this next example, I'm only using 3 tracks, just drums, a bit of bass synth, and some guitar with some synth wash in the background. So until next time, this is Simon Godfrey, Tribe of Names. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.